Welcome to Defending Our Health. This is a new show that we're doing focused on mind body mastery. My name is Kelley. I'm here with Forrest Sealey. We're going to talk about all things holistic health and also why we're launching this show, why we saw the need, and what we hope to accomplish with it. So, welcome, Forrest. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad that we decided to do this. It's really funny because I'm going to struggle with the name, and we love the name. However, defending our children is the other show that we have. So, folks, forgive me if I accidentally fumble the ball and say defending our children. It is defending our health.
Absolutely. So, this is a new show. We're joined here as well by Tim James. We're going to introduce him shortly. What we saw the need for was to focus on the mental and physical health aspects of not only protecting our children, but defending their health. Because, in my perspective, if we're not implementing the boundaries and the nutritional requirements and what they actually need for mental and physical health, we can't expect them to withstand the influences of society and all the things they're inundated with today. So, we hope to empower people with this information and also break it down to some really practical ways you can implement it, because we're all about solutions and action steps. So welcome, Tim James. We're glad you're here.
Oh, guys, thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to be hosting the show. There is some very, very, very pertinent information that has to go out to adults, specifically those with kids. And what we hope to impart to you on this show is that there's really not some big crazy myth to getting healthy. Okay. We're going to lay it out to you so you can understand why you got sick, why you don't have optimal health, why you got the beer belly, why you're not feeling good, why you have low energy, why you got mental fog, why you have arthritis, why you have all these crazy, I guess the umbrella term would be, autoimmune disorders, which could be a variety of things, Hashimoto's, fibromyalgia, all this stuff, all these things that we have going on. All these things are byproducts of a bunch of pollution. I mean, that's what the bottom line is we just live in a polluted world. So if we can show you guys what's actually happening and why we got to where we got, then we can just unwind it. And it's really exciting because you can actually take your health back. So I'm really excited, guys, to get this information across to people and share them. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure. We're so glad you're here. So Tim James is a health expert, and he also has a company called Chemical Free Body. Freebody.com. But Tim, can you give us an overview? I know you have a really intricate story about not only your experience, but your family and friends and what brought you to this realm of holistic health and helping people reclaim their health. Can you give us an overview of what brought you here and what your method is today?
Okay, cool. So I grew up over in Eastern Oregon, Northeast Oregon, and on a small cattle and hay farm. So I grew up pretty much redneck, hunting and fishing. It used to be my favorite pastimes. I lived for that kind of stuff. I played baseball at a high level for 30 years. Our little claim to fame here in our little town of La Grande, our team took 5th in the world in Babe Ruth. That was really fun. I got to go to Springfield, Missouri and play in the World Series, and I got introduced to chiggers and fireflies. So for those of you that know what those things, fireflies are pretty cool. The chiggers, I don't know about them. They tend to bite you, and you can't see them very easy. They're little. Luckily, the host parents had a swimming pool, so we were able to jump in after we're out in the weeds and stuff and get the chiggers off us. But anyway, I grew up on the standard American diet. I grew up on farmland out here in, God's country, which is pretty much every speck of dirt on this planet. And I just was just enjoying my life, going through life. I ended up moving down to the big city because I continued my baseball career down there, and I got a job in construction. I waited tables. I worked at a retirement center as a secretary. It was one of my first jobs just to make some money to pay rent. And then I finally got into mortgages, became a mortgage broker and a financial advisor eventually. And so I had a house and kids and all that stuff. But what ended up happening was at age 37, I found myself 42 pounds overweight, like a lot of people. A lot of us have gained weight. And we're going to show you how to unwind that weight and actually quite quickly. So, and then it got worse. Then I started having skin issues. I started getting eczema. And for those that have that or dealing with eczema or psoriasis, it sucks because your arms and legs and face and stuff can start cracking and bleeding, and it itches and it just looks weird. That started on my knee, spread to my elbows, and then I had another skin issue on my back. And then my digestive tract started failing. I started bleeding rectally. And then eventually, and Tums and Rolaids 24/7, acid reflux. Not, I mean, this was not, it was getting bad. Like it was like just waking up and, getting through the day and dealing with this stuff. Just to give you an idea, like my elbows would crack and bleed, and I'd be doing presentations as a financial advisor, and my clients would be like, "Hey, Tim, you're bleeding." And the blood would be going through my white, cotton shirt. So I had to start wearing black shirts because of the blood, and then sometimes it was so bad that it would dry during the day and then stick to my arm. And then I'd have to take a shower with my shirt on to get my shirt off because it was so painful because it was dried to my, my eczema. So this isn't fun stuff. And when I started sharing this story, I just thought it was like kind of like just me dealing with it. But there's thousands of people that have reached out and like, dude, I have those problems too. And so it's not, I'm not an isolated incident. It's like this is happening. It's rampant. The average person's on like 5 or 8, pharmaceutical drugs. It's kind of insane. The very few people aren't on them. So then after all that stuff, then I had to get life flighted down in Peru to get an emergency surgery to have an organ removed. So that was my life. I was married, had kids and a house and a mortgage, these responsibilities, but my health was failing. And I can tell you that it doesn't really matter how much money you have if you don't have your health. And unfortunately, in this world, for some reason, many of us have put money as the only form of abundance. And it's not. And when we kind of focus on money being the only form of abundance, we're closing and locking all the other doors in which abundance can come to us, be it money, be it somebody gifting us something, be it somebody being at the right place at the right time, so that things can synchronously work for us in our lives. And I can tell you that my journey was one of discovery, because after all these health issues, my friend got cancer on my baseball team, and we lost him at age 40, and he left 3 little boys behind. And so then after that, my other friend Charles at age 43 got diagnosed with cancer, and I thought I was going to lose another friend. I'd lost my aunt to lung and melanoma cancer. My mom took care of her, and then my grandma died of brain cancer. So I'd been around the cancer deal, and it seemed like everybody in my family or friends that got it died. So my new friend, or my friend Charles, now he's got it, and I'm thinking I'm going to lose him too. But he found this place in Florida called Hippocrates Wellness Center. We went there and we learned about detoxing and nutrition and, just basic stuff like clean air, clean water, clean food, sunshine, getting out in the dirt and the soil and all these natural things and getting high quality fresh foods, and got into sprouts and living foods and sprouted nuts and seeds and grains and beans. And we basically just stopped putting a bunch of toxic crap in our bodies and started putting in good quality nutrition. And then we learned ways to reduce our stress from this crazy life we're in. And my friend turned his health around and completely healed himself of that cancer. And here we are 13 years later. My friend, who was supposedly going to die, has no cancer, was able to see his son graduate high school, big deal, and go to father-son weekends at Oregon State University. When his son graduated, his son became a real estate agent and ended up selling Charles his house. Funny side note, both of my kids, Kim, Forrest, they just got their real estate licenses. So it was funny because when Charles and I used to hang out, I remember like fishing on the dock and with his son Charlie and my 2 boys, Cody and Kyle, and they caught like this pretty big sturgeon out of the Willamette River. And now all 3 of them are selling real estate. So it's so funny. So I wonder when my kids are going to sell me something.
Exactly. Well, that's incredible. I know you've been through a lot yourself with your health journey, and I know you're helping a lot of people today reclaim that health and really start that journey. So for people that are watching today, we know that everybody might be in a different stage of their journey, and we know for sure that it's a journey that's very unique to every individual. But I like to also start with, what is the definition of holistic health in your opinion? What does that even mean for people? And how would someone get started if they don't know where to start today?
Okay. So that's a good question. So just to wrap up my story, I came back and for the last 13 years I've been, in the beginning, I guess the word would be fanatical about living healthy. And the reason why is because I got such good results. When you're 37 years old and your bowel movements are a 6 or 7 on a pain scale, 1 to 10, and you're bleeding rectally, your elbows are bleeding, and your knees bleeding, and you have no energy, and you're just, used to be this athlete, now you're a shadow of what you used to be. It's kind of a scary thing. My world was imploding on itself. I wasn't growing and expanding anymore. I wasn't being the best Tim that I could. I wasn't the best version of myself, right? So I came back and I just got, I got upset actually because I started realizing that there was a lot of toxic ingredients in the food at the grocery stores, and I couldn't even believe that that was even allowed. Like I know I pay tax dollars, just like we pay tax dollars. You expect the roads to be taken care of. You pay tax dollars. You expect that the people in power are going to make sure there's no toxins in your freaking food. Well, good luck. Like I can go to a grocery store right now. I can walk anybody through a grocery store, and I can show you that probably around 90% of the stuff in the supermarket is the reason why you're sick, the reason why you're overweight. Like literally, the fuel it's poison. Like literally, and it's just simple to look at this stuff. Like a food dye is an example. You guys will see those yellow dye 6 and all these things. These are carcinogens. They cause cancer. And, we're coming up on Easter, and there's going to be a lot of little kids dyeing their Easter eggs with cancer causing chemicals and then ingesting those eggs and touching them into their hands. Their hands are going to get stained with cancer causing chemicals. It's going to go into their bloodstream. Okay. So, what is holistic healing? What is holistic health? Well, to me, I guess the definition is like really simple. It's you have to understand that your body is nature. There's no deviating from this. Your body's mostly made of what? Water. Where do you find that? In nature, rivers, creeks, streams, ponds. So you're mostly made of that. Your bones are made of minerals. Where do you find those? In the soil. So you're from Mother Earth. Another example is one of my favorite things that I'm working on out here at the farm. We're building a regenerative farm now where we no-till. And the reason why we don't till is we don't want to kill or destroy those very important microorganisms, those soil-based microorganisms that actually it's a whole world down there in the dirt, and they actually help to feed and nourish the plants, and they keep the plants strong and vibrant and robust so they have a long, healthy life and they can produce really good food for us. And those same microorganisms that are in the soil, many of them are the exact same microbiome that is supposed to be in our digestive tract. So just like ants and aphids have a symbiotic relationship, we have had a symbiotic relationship forever, as long as humans have walked this planet with these microorganisms that were in the soil that are now in our digestive tract. They work with us, they protect us, they do a lot of heavy lifting. And so we have to start looking at number one, that we are nature and we are directly connected to the earth. There is no separation from us and the earth. The reason why we are sick, the reason why we are overweight and we're so medicated today is because of the disconnection between the mothership, Earth, this living planet. The planet is alive just like us. And so that's holistic healing to me is like what we do is we give people the awareness of the things that are causing the problems, like all the pollution. The air is polluted. There's like 1 million people a year die of air pollution, and it grows every year. The water's polluted. The food's polluted. Your clothing that you're wearing, if it's not natural fiber clothing that has not been sprayed with chemicals, well, then you're polluting yourself. Cosmetics, shampoos, deodorants, toothpaste, all of these things are your environment. They need to be taken a look at. You have to take inventory of these things and see what's in them. Because what ends up happening is this pollution, unholistic stuff that's coming into us, all these toxins are accumulating and are bioaccumulating in our fat and our muscle tissue. And they're basically taking up space and blocking the pathways in which these nutrients could be absorbed. So even if you start eating healthy, I mean, that's a good thing, and you're getting fresher food with more nutrient dense food, it's going to just go through your body and pass right through, and the toxins are going to wave at the nutrients. Hey, how's it going? And they're going to go right through you and right out of you because they're holding space. So the first thing we teach is daily detoxification, the daily detox method. So your lifestyle, because we live in a polluted world, you need to have a lifestyle that creates detoxification on a daily basis. And again, we'll get into this. It's not hard. One of the things is drinking a whole lot of water. Okay. There you go. That's the lifeblood of your body, is this water. Like, you have to have good, clean water going. And that allows and opens up pathways and allows your body to move toxins out of the body through your lymphatic system, which is the garbage removal system. So these things are very important to understand, that daily detoxification, we have to get these toxins out. And then we put in the good nutrition from Mother Earth, which we were supposed to have in the first place. And then we let the body run its natural course. Now, because we live in a modern world, we also need to work on our stress. And a lot of our stress is self-inflicted, in a couple of reasons. Number one, we're our own worst enemies. Forrest, we've talked about this all the time. And then the second thing is we just get caught up in society and we don't know how to respond to a lot of these stressors. And so we live in a constant fight or flight mode, which creates more negative chemicals in the body. And then here we are. We're sicker than we've ever been. Our children are now dying younger than us. The life expectancy is dropping. And we spend like double the amount of money on healthcare of any other industrialized nation, yet we're ranked like 40th or 50th. So it's time for adults, us, to recognize this. And if the children are listening too, that's great, because kids are smarter than us until we've corrupted them. To turn this around, we just have to do it. Like, it's so obvious now. You just look around, everybody's suffering. I mean, my heart sinks every time I go to town and I'm looking around. Even in our small town here, I'm starting to see there's a lot of people on like meth and fentanyl, and they're everywhere. They're sleeping on the streets, and it's like, and then people are overweight, and I see them struggling to get in and out of the car, having a hard time breathing. People are taking oxygen tanks to walk around to breathe. I mean, this is ludicrous. And all of this, and you go see what they're buying, and they walk out with, ding dongs and ho hos and, chicken strips and candy bars and processed food, and people are like, oh, I don't know. And then you go to the doctor, like, oh, well, you're just getting older. No, you spent a lot of years going in the grocery store and poisoning yourself. You spend a lot of years in a relationship that doesn't work. You're in a career that you don't like. It really falls back onto us to make these personal changes and take our freaking life back, because God gave you this life. It's a gift, and to squander it it's a tragedy. It really is. Now, if you have I fully give you it's a valid choice. If you want to squander your life and get sick and be miserable, that's a choice, and I have to honor that. But it's like, is that what you really want? Because turning this stuff around is not hard. It's really not that hard.
Tim, I had a really interesting thought when you were describing society as you view it. And one thing that I look at now, after you and I have become friends and you've been coaching me, is look at the number of people that have diabetes. Look at the number of people that have autism. Look at the number of heart attacks, Alzheimer's. There's a lot of things that, if you peel back historically, they didn't exist 50, 100 years ago, but yet they do today. And I would have to believe that what you just mentioned, our consumption of air, water, and food being tainted, is a major contributing factor to those things.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's no question. In 1980, 1 out of 10,000 children had autism. As of 2024, it's 1 in 36. Think about that.
Exactly.
1 in 36, and most of them are the boys too. Now, here's the deal: if we keep on these current, in 1980, it was 1 out of 10,000. Here we are, 2024. It's 44 years later. We're at 1 in 36. If we stay on current trends, then by around 2050, 1 out of 2 children will be born with autism. What does that mean? That means that you either will have autism, or you're going to be taking care of somebody with autism. And who's going to be driving the school buses? Who's going to be the firefighters? Who's going to be the nurses? Who's going to be the farmers? I mean, if half the population is having functioning issues, you see what I'm saying? It's like, this is a big problem. I mean, it's a major problem. That's one. And we've seen a lot of people. I actually on my podcast, I had a client who their child had autism. They first they had a kid's healthy, everything's going fine, and then later they had another child, and boy, they all suffered. Their words were pretty much verbatim. Our life was a living hell for like 3.5 to 4 years because they kept going to the doctors, and the doctor's like, nope, there's nothing you can do about it, blah 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 blah. And not to get into where it may have came from, and getting poked a bunch of times as a kid, but it was right after the kid got you know poked that his his health went down, their youngest, and 3.5 years of hell. And so finally, after not getting anywhere with the docs, this family decided he started listening to tons of podcasts, and he actually put together a protocol, and he's like, okay, well, we'll give him some bacterium, the probiotics. Remember I was talking about those soil-based ones?
Yeah.
Well, those have been destroyed by all the pokes that this kid had been given and stuff like that. And so they started building that back up, and he got a little better. And then he heard that gluten and dairy products weren't good for humans, so he took his child off of the dairy and the gluten, and his autistic son improved a little bit more. And then he heard that there's good quality CBDs that could work. A lot of them are garbage, but it's the good ones. Put him on those. His son improved more. Then he realized that it could be some heavy metal poisoning from getting poked or whatever, and he needed to chelate that out. So he started researching all the different things that he could chelating just means to remove from the body, basically chelate out, get these toxins out of the body. Sorry to use these terms I've been learning. And so he looked up all the different natural herbs and stuff that would remove the heavy metals from the child and from the brain, because what the thought process is that when you have heavy metals injected into your body, they get into the brain, and then with the combination of that and the EMFs today from Wi-Fi and smart meters, that you're creating like the child's brain's like getting zapped because it has all this excess metal in it, and then the Wi-Fi and stuff is hitting it, and it's overstimulating it, and autism, right? So wouldn't it make sense if that was one of the factors can you get that stuff out? So he was looking at it, and he was like, he was already taking some of our products, and he looked at our toxin detox product, and every single thing he had looked up was all in that formula. So he's like, well, I'll just give my son some of this. Now his son was like 4 at the time, and we don't recommend children, it's the products are herbal and stuff like that. There's all these laws, so it's like he just did it on his own. Okay, so I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I don't diagnose. Our products are doctor formulated by Dr. Treadway, but I didn't make any recommendations. He just thought, well, I take 3 of these herbal pills for myself on the daily. My son's little. I'll give him like a half a capsule. And so he started there, sneaking it into like his little protein or smoothie shake or whatever he was making for him. And guess what happened? From that guy doing all that research on his own, that father and that mother, then they did the probiotics, they did the CBDs, they got them off of wheat and dairy, they improved the diet, and then they put them on that toxin detox product. And guess what? In 30 days, their son started speaking again. And in 6 months, they had their son completely back, full tilt. Now, I was so, they called me and told me this, and I was like in tears. I was so happy that my journey had created something that was a part of their journey of healing. So that's the cool thing. This isn't just about, if you have some health issues, getting well. This whole story and why we're doing this podcast and this radio show is because it's about you getting healthy and then becoming a light to help other people and becoming part of the ripple effect. This is it. This is a bottoms up working class movement, basically, is what we're doing here. We're helping ourselves, and then by doing that, we're giving everybody else around us permission slips for them to change. And unfortunately, a lot of us will not be listened to by our friends and family. My dad's still pretty stubborn about the whole stuff, right? He does the opposite of what I do, even though I've got amazing results and I've coached 700 people personally through this process, thousands, I've educated millions of people globally on these topics. My dad's still not going to listen to me, but it's okay. It's okay. Maybe he will. maybe he won't. That's not for me to decide. From what me to do is to get as healthy as I can and be the best Tim as I can and be a light in that dark room. And then handing out permission slips for the people around me to change. So,
Tim,
yeah,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to also point out that some of your clients, I'm not going to name them, that's for you to do, but you work with some of the highest trained athletes, in the world. And there's some things that you've shared with me. For example, you've got athletes that come from other countries to train here in the United States, and they start eating the diet that we offer, and they physically feel a change that they didn't have in the country of origin, which they came from, which I thought was a mind-blowing statement when you told me that.
Yeah. And many of them are smarter than that. They instantly look at the food and they're like, well, no wonder you guys are so sick. Your food's toxic. It's poison. I mean, it's just there was another gal that I actually met outside years ago. This gal from Kenya. She's she's from Kenya, grew up there. And she was coming. I was getting a green juice or something. This was before I stopped, patronizing that place because, whatever. Amazon bought them. And she was just had a lot of energy and she was getting some drink. And I go, what got you into doing all this health stuff? And we ended up having a great conversation. And if you can go to our about page and scroll down, and there's a video of her, I believe, and me that I shot with my phone right outside of Whole Foods. This woman was super healthy her whole life. She came over here from Kenya to the United States, got a corporate job, and before too long was 100 pounds overweight, going to the doctors and getting on all these pills, and then finally just crying her eyes out. In fact, that's what she said. I was just crying my eyes out, and she just took the pills and she threw them in the garbage can and just started doing some elimination diet. She just started eliminating things. And then the weight just started coming off. She started feeling better. And then she just said, I went back to Kenya and was talking to like her mom or dad or whatever. And, she's like, well, yeah, I need to buy organic food. And they looked at her like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, that's how I healed myself, was organic food. And over there, they were just like, well, we don't know what you're talking about. We just have food because it wasn't poisoned yet, just eat the food. So that's what it was. Like, people leave these countries, they come over here, they get sick because of the inputs. It's no different. Your body is a system. It is a business. It is a machine, just like a car is a machine, right? And if you buy a $50,000 car, which is pretty average now, I guess, would you not take care of that car? Like, your payments are $600 a month, and it's a big deal. And you need it to get back and forth to work. You need it to transport your kids. You need it to get to your job, to do your construction job, whatever you're using it for. It's an asset. It's a very expensive asset. And are you just gonna like, hey, you need to change the oil? Forget about it. I'll do that whenever. I'm not gonna change the oil. Oh, okay, whatever. And then hey, this gas station's got this gasoline over here. It's only $1.50 a gallon instead of $5 a gallon. It's got a little water in it, but they're selling it pretty cheap. Oh yeah, I'll put that in my car. And then all of a sudden, what do you think's gonna happen to your car? You start putting gasoline in your car with a little bit of water. Well, it's not going to run that well. It's not. It might run. It might chug along, but it's just not going to run that well. You don't change the oil. You don't change the fuel filter. Eventually, you're going to end up in the shop a lot sooner than you should have with that car compared to the person who maintains that car. It's exactly what's happening with our health today in Western civilized worlds.
Yeah.
We are opting because wages have not gone up since the 1970s. There's a squeeze on the middle class right now. And the whole COVID thing just crushed small businesses, completely crushed them. And there's a lot of pressure, and you don't have the money. So you're like, oh, I can't afford to get this, so I'm going to go buy this because I have to feed my family. But what you've done is you've just fell into the big plan, the big trap. And even if you don't think it is, if somebody didn't plan it, well, then that's what happened by default. Then you buy this cheap food, you fill your belly, but you're never going to fill your cellular need for nutrition. and you're putting chemicals in your body, blocking those pathways where nutrition can get absorbed, and you're going to get sick and fat, and you're going to get tired, and you're going to start getting all these symptoms, and then you're going to go to the doctor, and they're not going to know what it is, or they'll get a diagnosis, and then you're going to go on a bunch of pills and surgery and radiation and chemo. That's the path. So that's one path. It's a viable path. You can choose that path if you want to, or you can say, how can I eat healthy on a budget? How can I do this? How am I going to make this happen? Because the people over the entirety of time humans have been on this planet that are the healthiest eat lower on the food chain. And end of story. And there's so many examples of this. Like, the kings and the queens, they were the ones that had all the fried and the fatty foods, and they had access to sugar. Sugar used to be under lock and key and brought out only during parties and holidays and birthdays and celebrations, because it was very hard to get. Now it's everywhere. And these kings and stuff were overweight. They were the fat ones. They had the big bellies, and they had disease. Where the peasants were eating lower on the food chain. They were just pulling up, sweet potatoes and eating them out of the ground, and peas and corn, and doing that stuff fresh that they grew, or they'd forage for, stuff out in nature, huckleberries, blueberries, apples, that kind of stuff. You're always going to heal yourself better. Actually, I have a guy right up the street here. I won't say who it is, but he kind of, alcohol, death in the family kind of set him spiraling, alcohol, and gained a whole bunch of weight. And I thought he looked pregnant. Like, he had such a belly, he looked pregnant. And then he ran out of money. And so in the fall, he literally just ate apples. That's all he was eating. He was going around to the apple trees on his property. He was just eating apples. And in 90 days, this guy had come back to life. He'd lost almost all the weight, and he was looking great because he couldn't afford to buy the crap anymore. He was eating rice and mustard. I mean, it was just and basically booze. That's all his diet was: booze, rice, and mustard. And then he switched over to apples, and he started healing himself. Again, there it is right there. It's like nature has the solutions. If it was made on this planet, then it'll help you, in a lot of cases. So there you go, Forrest.
Yeah, there's this quote that resonates with me that says something about health is not just the absence of disease. I believe Sadhguru was the one who said that. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions because it's been normalized to live with pain and suffering or other symptoms that we consider somehow normal in society or part of aging. But as you and I both know, that's not normal. Health is not just not being sick. Health is vitality. Health is mental and physical wellness. Health means optimal performance. So with the analogy you were using of the car and putting, gasoline with water in it, I've seen that as well, where people are very conscious of what we should and should not put inside our car, or should and should not feed to our dogs. But when it comes to our personal health, our bodies are so resilient that if you drink a can of soda, you may not, especially if you're not very connected with your body, you may not feel or see a difference. You're not going to shut down. But long term, your performance will suffer. And long term, it's not cheaper to get the gas with the water in the gasoline, because over time you will break down. It will cause other symptoms. So I want people to understand that health is not just not being sick. Health means thriving. Health means quality sleep and energy, and not living with chronic pain. Or if you have pain, you can manage it. Health means being in tune with your body and your mind so that you listen to it. And if a symptom does present, you realize that's not normal and you listen to it. You pay attention to that check engine light, if you will, and you open the hood and you check what's actually wrong with it and you resolve it. We don't just learn to take a pill for every ill or coexist with that. So you brought up a lot of really interesting points. I think one of many misconceptions, because it's been so trendy with products, is the word detox or detoxification. Now, that can mean different things to different people, and people have a different definition for what the process of detoxification should be. But to oversimplify it in your definition, what is detoxification? What are some common misconceptions about it? And how do you start addressing them with people that you start working with? Where do they begin with detox?
Well, I'm really glad that there's a big, It's become a buzzword, and a lot of people are getting into detoxing because it is foundational to regaining your health and vitality, period. And again, to what you said, Kim, is and I spoke about earlier, is like you you have no idea how good you can feel, because if you have a habit of something, you start eating ho-hos and eat them for a couple weeks, your body's going to very quickly adapt to it, right? And you don't realize how much energy you've lost or brain function you've lost. You just kind of, it becomes the new norm. Your body just modulates real quickly. Well, it goes the other way too, because once you get healthy, because I was on that slippery slope for 37 years. And then all of a sudden I turned my health around. And then if I go back and eat some toxic garbage, oh boy, I can feel it. Whereas before I could eat it all day and I didn't even really notice it, except that my life was miserable every day. Duh. But I didn't make the connection, right? Once I got well, this is why when I coach people, usually 4 to 6 months into the private coaching, I would have them do 30 days, just a whole food, plant-based diet. That was it. We would just eliminate meat for 30 days. And then I'd have them come back on the 30th day and then go eat whatever they want. Go out, celebrate, have cake, pie, whatever, have a big burger, sweet, whatever you want. Just knock yourself out. Pizza. They'd call me the next day and they said it felt like they got hit by a Mack truck, like cold and flu-like symptoms, right? Because we'd done so much, cleaning and stuff like that. Now, for those that are listening, I'm not saying that meat is bad. What I'm saying is that, when you're when you're trying to heal, you know, there's a bunch of, this is going to be a whole nother topic we're going to have to bring up, because there's this whole debate now on, plants versus carnivore and everywhere in between. And I'm here to tell you, it's a sliding scale for everybody, depending on your physical needs right now and your emotional needs. So the emotional needs are also tied into the types of foods you're eating right now. But there are certain things you can do for short periods of time. And every time I've ever been to any of these detox clinics, the good ones, it's just pure plants, like for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. And then people go back. And so they can do these. Oh man, there's just so many definitions about detoxification. So, all right, so let's get into that. All right, so detoxification is simply removing things from your body on a cellular level that shouldn't be there. We're talking about heavy metals, things that can come from drinking out of like aluminum cans, or maybe you were exposed to lead-based paint in the 70s, like I was. Maybe you got poked somewhere with a metal needle, and inside of whatever was in there had some aluminum adjuvants. All right, so there's some nano-sized aluminum particles in there. That would be a heavy metal. Okay. However, the metals got into, so heavy metals is one thing you would want to detox, because we're supposed to have metal in our body. Every element in the elemental chart, we should have some of that in our body, even mercury, which is a toxic poison. But it should be a very teeny tiny amount. And most of these things should have moved through the root system of a plant to have that carbon molecule attached to them. So they're now carbon-based, like our carbon-based bodies. So we want to detox heavy metals. We want to get chemicals out, toxic man-made chemicals. We want to definitely get those out. And, then after that, there's this whole breakdown of the immune system, right? So because of the breakdown of the immune system, there's a whole nother subset of things that have cropped up. This is yeast, molds, and fungus, and we also have parasites, right? And so we should have all of these things inside of us at very teeny tiny amounts. But what ends up happening is when the immune system drops, when those gram-positive bacterium, those good microbiome, aka they call them good, there really is no such thing as good or bad, because if God created these things, they're there for a reason. I'll give you an example. Like if you have E. coli and salmonella in you, okay, you're supposed to have a little bit. Why? Because when you die, these bacterium are sitting there waiting to do their job. They're not bad. They're just sitting there doing their thing, waiting. Okay, he's dead. She's dead. Okay, now let's chew up the body and take it back into the soil and go back into the cycle of life. So it's not like there's good and bad bacteria. They're all there to do a job. The problem is when a certain amount of them, the ones that are supposed to be there in a certain, amount while you're alive, gets knocked back, These other ones are like, oh, there's more room to grow over here. So, okay, we'll grow a little bit. They're just doing what they're naturally designed to do. It's not their fault, right? It was our fault because we didn't take care of ourselves, or we didn't know, we didn't have the awareness because of the foods we were putting in, or whatever, even medication stuff. Antibiotics are going to wipe out your bacterium. One, alcohol wipes out the gut microbiome. This is part of your immune system. So we have to look at things as they really are and understand that we have to build up those immune systems. So if you think you're going to, as an example, detox these bacterium, the gram-negative ones, and not be flooding the body with the gram-positive, it's not going to work because they're just going to keep coming back. So you got to get the room crowded back full of the good, gram-positive bacterium, and then as you're taking out the gram-negative, they have to happen at the same time. You can't just kill the AKA bad ones without flooding the body with the good ones. Right. So how do you do
strategy? Remove and replace, because you don't only want to take things out, you also want to replace with nourishment and nutrients. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so these are just some things to think about detoxification. Also, people's livers are polluted, kidneys, all this kind of stuff. And so if you're thinking about doing like a liver cleanse, liver flush, liver gallbladder flush, kidney flushes, these types of things, these are good. If you can get, the right products to do it with and all that. But I wouldn't do any of that until I've cleaned up my digestive tract. The digestive tract is the first place we start. So when you said, where do we start people? We usually start people on like 4 foundational things. We call them our 4 core secrets. And we have an ebook. If people are interested, I'll eventually what we'll do is we'll create a landing page for it, Kim, where people can go get that ebook. But or they can, right now they could send an email to support@chemicalfreebody.com, support@chemicalfreebody.com, and just say, hey, I want a copy of that ebook, and then we can send it over to them. But the 4 core secrets, number 1 starts with water. And the reason why is because it's kind of an easy concept, right? And 95% of people are not drinking enough water, and the water they are drinking is polluted. So this is the only one of these core 4 secrets that actually might create you to have an investment, because you might have to get your water cleaned up. Okay. You're going to have to do this. So if you can just do this one thing, like if there's one thing you get away from this talk today, this sharing, is that your body's nature, and you're probably not drinking enough water. So let's go get you some clean water, and if you don't have a water purification system, I mean, you can go get spring water. If that's not available, go to your local grocery store, get some gallon glass jars and start packing your water. For your drinking, you can get, 25 to 50 cents a gallon. You can get water at these grocery stores around the United States still. And that could be reverse osmosis, deionization, distillation. Distilled water is great. Just don't do it in the plastic bottles, okay? Because those plastics are off-gassing more microplastics, and you're trying to get this stuff out. We don't want to be putting it in, okay? So you're going to start drinking a lot of water. You're going to drink half your body weight in liquid ounces daily. And you're going to do it because you love yourself and you understand that you've been polluted, just like everybody else. The umbilical cord studies show this unequivocally, that every single child they've looked at, the cord blood is completely riddled with hundreds of cancer-causing chemicals. And this is one of the reasons children are being born with cancer today. So you want to get your water right. You want to start flooding your body with water. This is the first thing you can do to begin the detoxification process. You're setting up the environment of flow. You're setting that in the environment so your body can recognize that there's a lot of flow going on right now, and the body will recognize this and start releasing things on its own. Now, we do other things to go deeper, like far infrared saunas to push this stuff out. But water is the basic thing to start with. And then we work on the digestive tract. So we have a product we call Gut Detox. I think it's like $49. And when you first get that, you double down on it. This is an ancient Ayurvedic formula that our formulator brought over. It was formulated by doctors over 10,000 years, biological engineering, system science. And you basically double down on it for 15 days. So you'll take 3 capsules in the morning and at night for 15 days. And then you're going to clean up that 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material that's lodged in your colon. and this mucoid plaque stuff that gets in people's small intestines. This is very important to get that pathway of elimination clean first, and then you can start thinking about doing like a liver flush, liver gallbladder flush, kidney flush, and that kind of stuff. But there's some basics. So water, and then if for some reason you didn't have the finances for gut detox, what you can do, you can do. Oh man, there's so many things. There's some things that will work that you can do on the cheap, but they're not quite as effective, and some of them could like disturb your gut microbiome. Like there's certain magnesium products that will turn into oxygen and completely liquefy everything in your digestive tract, but it also takes out like a lot of good bacterium, those gram-positive bacterium, right? So that's why, and I used to do those, but we got away from because Dr. Treadway told me about the gut that gut detox product, so we started carrying that just to have it for people. And then after that, I just take 3 a day for maintenance. So I've been taking that product for like 8 years, and I take it now 6 days a week, and I take 1 day off, and I don't do any supplements. So I'm kind of farther down the road than most. But for the beginners, I think that's probably the easiest thing is just drink a bunch of water, take that product initially for the first 15 days, double down, and then just take 3 a day for maintenance. You can also do enemas. Like you can do that on the cheap at home. There's coffee enemas as well. People can look that up. Make sure you're getting, good shade grown, low acidic coffee. These are ways to got to get in there and get these intestines cleaned up. It's very important. The Royal Society of Medicine said that 85% of disease starts in the colon. And it's supposed to be a waste removal system, not a storage tank, but the average person's got about 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material in the colon. You definitely want to get that out. That's like having a car and the engine cylinders are all gummed up and they can barely move. Of course, the car's not going to run right. You take the hood off, you clean up the cylinders, you oil them, you put them back in, and the car's going to hum. If you got 6 pounds of funk and gunk and junk in your colon, your body ain't going to hum. It ain't happening. And this is one of the reasons I think colon cancer is so high, because there's so much, everybody's got this impacted garbage in the colon. Again, this is not a storage tank. It's not designed for that. It is designed as a waste removal system. It's designed to extract, the colon is designed to extract the water out of the food as it finishes it off. There's special bacterium in there that are supposed to break the hydrogen-carbon bond, release hydrogen into the system, and pull the remaining nutrients out of it. That's what it's used for. It's not supposed to get impacted against the intestinal wall and get bigger and thicker and bigger and thicker, and then it won't work right. And that's where a lot of people are. So those are the first things I'd have people focusing on, Kim, is drinking lots of water, getting that colon and the digestive tract cleaned up. That's what I would focus on first. And after you get that done, come on back. We'll give you step 2.
I love it. So we're talking about removing and replacing things. And I think that for sure, drinking a lot of water would be a great place to start for people who are not in that habit. I want to give people an analogy to oversimplify it, because we're talking about the garbage disposal and the waste system. Our body's natural processes are designed similar to a garbage disposal, where if you think of it like a clogged drain, if your toxic load is so bombarded that things are clogged up, your goal is to first of all get that flow where it does drain, so water can help flush it. But we should also stop pouring garbage on top to give it that chance to unclog, if you will. So if we're asking people, like, if the one thing they must do is drink more water, and ideally quality water, what's the one thing they must stop doing or remove, assuming they're on a standard American diet?
Well, it's a coin flip, because I know most people are doing both of them. Wheat and dairy products.
More than sugar?
Wheat and dairy. Well,
Ooh.
wheat does convert into sugar. I would start with wheat and dairy. The reason why is because when we're talking about sugar, it's like going to a cocaine addict and saying, "Hey, stop doing cocaine." Like literally, right? So, because if you look at the molecular structure of sugar, it's almost identical to cocaine. There's the molecule structure is almost identical, except sugar is 3 times more addictive. So, yeah, I mean, you could say stop sugar, but that's going to be tough for people, especially if they're drinking lots of water. They got to get their colon cleaned, and then they got to start flooding their body with nutrition. And that's where we do the green juice. I do actually, to go back to that previous segment, the last thing would be flooding the body with the greens. And I do that twice a day. I do it in the morning, first thing on empty stomach, and I do it again about a half an hour before dinner. I mix up 24 ounces of water, scoop of the greens, shake it up, and I drink it. And then, and that's it. You got to constantly flood the body with the nutrition, because what'll end up happening is if you're cleaning and flooding the body with nutrition, your taste buds are going to start changing. We also get people using tongue scrapers. You're going to see white, yellow, brown stuff coming off of your tongue. It's gross. But imagine how gross it is to be inside of you. So every time you brush your teeth, you scrape your tongue. That's the easiest way to start seeing what's coming out of your body. And you'll be like very motivated to keep doing what you're doing when you start tongue scraping. You can go buy these things for like $7, $9, $10 at a grocery store. We just got 2,500 of them in stock, or 2,000 of them at our fulfillment center. We're actually putting an offer together where we're offering like our green juice product. And we're going to be, eventually when we roll this out, it'll come with a tongue scraper, because we just want to get people, the tongue scraping creates so much awareness when you scrape your tongue. Have you guys ever scraped your tongue?
Yeah, I have one. I've never seen green and brown stuff, but
I haven't, Tim, and I use a toothbrush. I scrub my tongue pretty hard, but are you telling me that that's not good enough?
Well, I mean, a metal tongue scraper is, I mean, it's going to really scrape at a deeper level. So you just grab yourself one.
All right, I'll get one.
You'll see.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, and Kim's one of the healthiest people I've ever met. So I've done an intake form on Kim, just so you guys know. And I was like, well, you could probably work for me. It's like you're so healthy. I mean, there was a couple little things. I'm like, well, that and that, but for the most part, she was one of the most dialed in people with their health that I've seen. And I've done thousands of these health histories forms, and they're very in-depth questionnaire and stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm really healthy. And then you look at their questionnaire and it's like, no, you're not. Everybody's got room for improvement, but that's probably why Kim was already detoxed and pretty much cleaned up and stuff. So, okay. So back to that other stuff. So it was like, drink lots of water, get the crap out of your colon, flood your body with greens. That's step one. Okay. That'd be a nice little thing to do.
Okay. Tim, can I ask you a question about wheat though? Because wheat is, I guess most people don't realize how much wheat we take into our lives. I mean, that's bread, it's pasta. Even tell me some other things that.
Let me clarify these too. Let me clarify wheat and dairy, just so people understand where I'm coming from. Because after I tell you this stuff, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's common sense. But then you're going to have to go get your replacements. Okay, here's the deal. Wheat, they found wheat when they opened, excavated like the pyramids and stuff. They found wheat kernels that were thousands of years old, sprouted them, and they grew. Wheat was called the staff of life. Okay, 36% protein content. Amazing B vitamins, great for your brain health, great for energy, great for your gut. Awesome. Okay. Now, the difference is that you had to get that wheat grain and you have to sprout it. You had to soak it in water to release its natural insecticides or protectants and activate it so it's alive. Okay. Now, and most people are not doing that. What's happened today through the selective editing, because wheat used to be like 4, 5, 6 feet tall, 4 or 5 feet tall, big, tall, right? Now, when you see wheat in the fields, it's 18 inches tall. Why is that? It's 18 inches tall. What's that?
It grows faster for harvesting cycles.
Yeah, so they've selectively hybrid. It's called dwarf wheat because let's say you had all these 4 or 5 footers, and then you had a little wheat down there that was 18 inches. They'd grab the grains off of that one and then keep making more of those. And so they selected these dwarf ones, the smaller ones. Okay, no, whatever. It is what it is. But the majority of them were growing real tall. So that's probably in natural selection what it was. They wanted the tall ones, but they grew the shorter ones. And then what's happening is that wheat is now, it's multifaceted. Number one, the wheat is grown in nutrient deficient soils. Okay. So it's not getting the nutrients it should. Number two, they're spraying it with glyphosate. They finish wheat with glyphosate because it helps it get more production for whatever reason. It's not really for the herbicide part of it. They just spray chemicals on it. At a wheat field right here east of our property, they'll have the planes spraying glyphosate on it right next to our farm. It's very frustrating. So number one, I guess, go back. Wheat has been selected for dwarf. Number two, it's grown in nutrient deficient soils. Number three, it's sprayed with glyphosate. So what's the end result? Well, what I can tell you is that people that I've coached, over 700 of them, they get off of wheat, they feel better, just like that young autistic child, because it's not natural. Okay. In nature, yeah, you might have picked up a dwarf wheat and ate it. Okay. But it would have been a little small amount with the rest of it. No big deal. Those grains mixed in. But it wasn't supposed to be, it would have been grown in nutrient dense soil, and it wouldn't have been sprayed with glyphosate. That's it. Okay. Take away the chemicals, add back in the nutrition, and take it as nature and God gave it to you. You're going to be fine. How do I know this? Because I have clients that will leave here. They go over to Europe on vacation, and they'll have croissants and, pasta, and they enjoy themselves, and they don't have any issues. And then they come back here and they eat the wheat and their issues come back. All their autoimmune disorders come back. I just went to Colombia for a couple of, went to Mountains of Hope. It's a healing retreat in Medellin, Colombia, actually out of Rio Negro, 15 minutes from the airport. And on my second tour of duty there, I went down and we got pizza. And I'm like, I'm going to try the gluten crust, which I don't eat. Because here's the deal. If I eat wheat or dairy within short period of time, minutes, if not hours, I get like this crackly mucus. I can hear it. I move my jaw and my ears, like just instant, like, because I'm clean now, right? Well, I had the pizza was delicious. I think I had like 3 big pieces, went to the airport, flew home. I never had any of those issues. Because the wheat wasn't compromised. A lot of people, these glutens are destroying your health. And I actually had Dr. William Davis on my show, and we just talked about wheat. He has a book called The Wheat Belly, and he talked about the gliadin proteins. And the bottom line is like, if you eat products with wheat in them, now I'm talking whole wheat, and you've been branded your whole life, whole wheat bread is good. Whole wheat bread is good. Whole wheat bread is good for you. It's good. It's not better than that white bread. That white bread's crap, right? It's the same stuff as far as what the end result is to your digestive lining. If basically from the information that he gave me in that podcast, I was like, oh my God, if you continue to consume wheat that's not from its natural state, that has been sprayed with glyphosate and been grown in these soil deficient soils or nutrient deficient soils, you're basically suicidal at some level because you're slowly killing yourself. I mean, that's what's happening. I see it night and day. People get off of it. It's like a light bulb goes on. They get back on it, light bulb goes off. The mental clarity, everything with wheat. Okay. And read your freaking ingredients labels. You're the only one. You're the one that's going to protect yourself from it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And if you find a company that's got great products and you check the labels and it's awesome, and they come out with a new product and you don't read that label, there's a high probability it's going to have something in it you don't want. You have to read the labels every single time. And
100%.
then every time you have to do it every time. Now,
well, we're talking about reading labels. There's also what's most important, the ingredient list or the nutrition facts? Are we looking at the calories or the ingredients specifically?
The ingredients matter.
A lot of people fight with calories, and that's a whole other conversation we should have. But the ingredients,
it's deception. It's all deception. That's what it really boils down to. And the labels are all getting compromised. The entire organic system is completely compromised now. All of it. It's just the best of the worst. There's chemicals in organic. They don't check the water inputs to these farmers. I've spoke to them. And the more money the farmers make, the more they got to pay, and the more paperwork they got to do. And nobody's really testing this stuff, right? And they're allowing them to till the farm, so they're growing these organic crops in nutrient deficient soils. So what ends up happening, you extra pay more money for this organic deal, and it's might taste better and look a little bit better than the conventionally sprayed one, but it's still got chemicals in it, and it was grown and it's just terrible. It's unbelievable what's happened. Okay, so hopefully I made a big point about wheat, because you asked me what are some of the things to get off of. Well, get off of frickin' Americanized wheat. You have to do it. Okay. And you can look into some things like if you can get wheat that is for sure it was grown in nutrient dense soils and it was wild. and it wasn't sprayed with glyphosate, like maybe einkorn, you could look into that einkorn wheat if you can get a good source, then you can do it. And then, but you have to get first person experience. You can try it and see how it makes you feel. But the key is that you have to take that grain and soak it in water first for like 4 to 6 hours or overnight to release the natural insecticides or protectants and to activate the enzymes and get rid of all these things that can hurt your gut. So a lot of these things like paleo, like grains or beans, they're bad. Well, depends on where you get them and if you've sprouted them or not, aka soak them in water. If you do those things, then so these grains can become game changers for your health. Okay, the second thing is dairy. Now, I grew up on dairy. I believe Shaq and Michael Jordan and all these people were drinking it and they had the milk mustache. And so I'm pounding gallons of milk because I want to, milk does the body good, right? I want strong bones and I want to be an athlete like these guys. And so whether they knew or not, I don't know. I didn't know at the time. But I never had anybody really break it down to me until I was actually at Hippocrates. And I was asked this question: what is the purpose of cow's milk in nature? What does nature use cow's milk for? Can you guys have any guesses on that?
Baby cows.
Baby cows.
Okay, so in nature, God designed cow's milk for a baby cow. How long? How long does a baby cow have cow's milk? Till it
Not
weans.
First few months, yeah.
Yeah, till it weans, and then after that, the baby cow eats what? Grass.
Yes.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's pretty simple. So if God intended that for a baby cow for a short period of time, and then the cow weans, then why would another species have to have it to have strong bones? We have to have it. Your bones are gonna crumble. Okay. When you actually dissect this thing and pull it back, in fact, the doctor told me, he goes, Tim, if you really think that cow's milk is good for you, would you actually get down on your hands and knees and drink from the breast of a cow? And I was like, ugh. Just thinking, I've milked cows before. It's, I'm like, probably not, right? He's like, well, if you would, then maybe milk's a good thing for you. If not, then maybe you'd want to get some information. And the first thing that I was told was that there's a protein in milk called casein. Casein is a carcinogen to humans. It causes cancer. Let me repeat that. The main protein in dairy, called casein, when ingested by a human, causes cancer. Okay, why are we drinking milk? Well, you think that'd be enough, so we'll check that one off. Okay, causes cancer. Number 2, we do not have the substance in our stomach to break down this casein protein. Only baby cows do. It's called renin. People can go look it up. Renin. We do not. So everybody is lactose intolerant at some level because we don't have the casein digesting enzyme renin in our stomach. Only baby cows do, because that was God's plan, right? Put them enzymes in there for the baby cow to drink the mother's milk until the baby cow no longer needs the milk, and then it goes and eats the grass. So that's the other thing is like, do mama cows and adult cows, do they have strong bones? Yeah. Well, what are they eating? Grass. Okay. Hay, that kind of stuff. So how come they don't drink milk for strong bones? That would kind of make sense. If the cows themselves aren't doing it, then why would we, a different species? And why cows? How come we don't do rats? How come we don't do rat milk or giraffe milk or rhinoceros milk? Let's see what else. How about hippo milk? How would you like to try to milk a hippo, Forrest?
I would think I would rather milk a rat.
Yeah. The rat's probably going to bite you too. Well, the reason
but I would
why is
live.
because
I would live from that.
You can handle that bite.
Yeah. You piss off a hippo, you're done, right?
So the thing is, humans consume milk in our first few months or sometimes years of life, but it's human milk, not animal milk. So people correlate these nutrients in milk, but we're not necessarily talking apples to apples when we're comparing a mother's breast milk to a cow's breast milk. Those are pretty different.
Let's say you're 20 years old, 30 years old. Let's say you're 40, 50. Why are you not drinking your mother's breast milk right now? What's wrong with you?
No, thanks.
Wouldn't that be better than drinking from another species breast during your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s? You see, when you start unpacking this stuff, it doesn't even make sense. Now, here's the thing about, oh, but I need my calcium. Tim, I need my calcium because I've been conditioned my entire life. They've brainwashed. They've stolen your prefrontal cortex from you, and they have you living in fear mode. But milk does the body good. It's good for strong bones. Well, let's take a look at that. So if milk is good for your bones, then the countries that consume the highest amounts of dairy would have wouldn't it make sense they would have the lowest incidence of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and hip fractures. But it's exactly the opposite. When you look at the countries that have the highest consumption of dairy products, be it the United States, Canada, Ireland, Europe, Germany, we have the highest incidence of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and hip fractures. So what ends up happening, I looked into this, is that when we consume cow's milk, it actually comes into our bodies. It's very acidic, and so our body has to neutralize this acid. How does it do that? The body's intelligent. It takes nutrients out of the bones, one of them being calcium, leaches it out of the bones to go in and neutralize the dairy products you just ate, your cheese, and your bowl of cereal with the milk in it and the ice cream. So you're actually weakening your bones. It does the exact opposite of what they said on the ads to sell it to you. And again, going back to why cows, because cows are huge, they're docile, and eventually when they die, they can grind them up and sell them, and they're popping out babies all the time. Milk isn't even natural anymore because, one time a year, a cow would get pregnant, have one baby, and that would be it. They inject these cows with hormones. They keep them artificially inseminated all the time. They pop out a baby, and if it's a little baby girl, she goes into making more dairy milk. If it's a boy cow, it goes to your fancy restaurant so you can have a really delicate piece of veal. That's where it goes. And you go to these dairy farms, when they're stealing away, abducting the children of these cows, the mothers and the cows are, and it's a horrible deal. It's horrible. And that's part of our voting. We're voting with our dollars. We're promoting that kind of stuff, right? And so the nipples on the girls, the female cows get all infected. They're in a lot of pain. They're always injecting them with hormones. They're constantly lactating because the accountants found out that because cows can live like 20 some years, but if you're doing a business and you have to feed a cow for 20 some years and you get X amount of input for the hay and all the feed, and your output Y is this much, versus if I can keep that cow lactating all the time and it dies in 5 years because I wore it out, right? But I only got to feed it for 5 years and my output is much higher. It's a business, right? So there's signs that says do not treat these animals like machines. So that's the mentality that a lot of the workers and people, they treat them like a machine. They don't even treat them like they're a living being, no different than us. And so, and because they are in this constant state of lactation, there's all this inflammation and infection in the milk. There's a lot of infection. So there's I can't remember what the number is, but it's like one glass of milk has like 100,000 pus molecules in it of infection. And that's pretty standard, right? So we've unpacked dairy. Dairy is for a baby cow for a short period of time, and then that cow will eat grass to have strong bones and live a healthy, long life. Okay. So it's in no place should be in the deal. I can understand Little House on the Prairie. It's a winter. Mom got sick. She dried up. The guy looks out. Oh, the cow's got milk, gives it to him. Okay. I could see how that could happen. But other than that, knowing what we know now, why would we do it? And what I can tell you after coaching 700 people through this process, you get them off of dairy and their health improves. Your mind, your mental clarity improves. You start getting all this mucus out of your body. Your bones are going to get stronger. And you're going to be a healthier person. You're going to be a much, much healthier person because you're actually stopping, like Kim said, stop putting in the things that are destroying your health. And then, so what are some of the alternatives? Well, you can do, I go to a company called Blue Mountain Organics and I order this is the easy route for people. Sprouted nut butters. You can get like sprouted walnut butter or sprouted almond butter. Sprouted is the key. Okay. Cause it's much more bioavailable. And then you just take your blender, high-speed blender, put some good water in it, put like 16 ounces of water, whatever, put in a tablespoon or 2 or 3 of your sprouted nut milk and blend it for 5 seconds. Very minimal blending, very minimal, because you don't want to destroy the nutrients. And voila, you have a nut milk that you can use to make your chai tea lattes, your matcha lattes. You can put it in your coffee if you want to, and you can make it thicker. The more butter you put in, you can get it more like half and half, or you can have it 1%. You can play around with it, and you could put that on some type of Ezekiel brand cereal, or something that's healthy. There's very few cereals that are actually healthy, but that's how you do it. And yeah, in the beginning it might taste a little different, but after you've gotten on these types of milks for a while, and I've went back and I've tried a little dairy or something like that, it's like, ooh, it tastes weird. And at first the almond milks tasted weird. So there's a process of adjustment, but just be careful in the stores, guys. The reason I wanted you to go to Blue Mountain Organics is because if you go to the stores and you start buying almond milk and it has xanthan gum in it or gellan gum, and you're going to start doing these milks on the daily because you were doing it's movement. It's better than what you were doing. But eventually those gums, these are emulsifiers. They're toxic to the intestinal line. They're going to start destroying your intestinal villi. These are the hair-like structures that line your small and large intestine. And over time, that's not good. So if you need to do those as a bridge food, getting off of dairy to the store-bought ones, try to find the ones without xanthan gum, without gellan gum, and also without any type of seed oils. I would avoid seed oils. So xanthan gum, gellan gum, and seed oils.
Let's talk about seed oils real quick, because that's another big one that people have, I think, it's been normalized in our food and fast food, but there's also this sneaky misconception that people think it's healthy because it comes from a plant or seed. So what's your views on seed oils? What oils are actually healthy for us, and what are the oils we need to stop consuming and cooking with?
Okay. Well, flaxseed's a really good one to talk about to start this topic, because it's kind of like one of the super health foods, in the health food arena. A lot of people know about it. In that 4 Core Secrets ebook, we actually give you a very special recipe with flax to make a very special flax water to heal your gastrointestinal tract. So through the soaking process. So when you look at a seed in its natural state, okay, there's fat in there, right? And when you squeeze that seed or press it, out comes the oil. That's where the oil comes from. Now, this is the difference between cold pressed and heat pressed. Now, they don't call it heat pressed. They call it expeller pressed. They use an expeller machine. So it squeezes the seeds or the nuts at very high pressure points, right? That squeezing creates heat. And then that heat turns that oil into a lipid peroxide. Lipid peroxides are cancer-causing agents. So just like the casein in the dairy, you're drinking cow's milk, you're giving yourself a little bit of cancer, does the body good, right? Same thing's happening with these seed oils. So if you see expeller pressed, run from the door. Don't walk. You do not want to put this stuff in your body. Okay. And so that's why you want cold pressed. Okay. So when it comes to these seed oils for major corporations, and when they're putting out lots and lots and lots of it, the first question is, well, let's go back to the origin of the seed. Was it an heirloom seed? Was the seed genetically engineered or genetically modified? Was that seed grown in nutrient deficient soils? Was that seed sprayed with, as it grew into a plant, pesticides, fungicides, larvicides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers? Then it was harvested. How was it processed? Was it expeller pressed or cold pressed? These are all the kind of questions. And if you're just blindly grabbing something off the store shelf, I can guarantee you you have a 99% chance that it's not. It's all the bad stuff or a combination of them. That's just the statistics. Look around. How many people are really healthy? Like being healthy, because at age 37, I wasn't healthy. Now I'm 50, and I walk around and people comment. I get comments on my health all the time. I'm like an oddity now, and I'm not even as healthy as I could be. I know I've got room for improvement. I'm a lot of room for improvement. Like it's a lot, which is exciting.
All you have
Yeah.
to do is watch a movie from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and you'll notice the evolution of the cast members. If you see a scene where there's a lot of people, walking through New York City, or people on a dance floor, as every 10 years, they seem to get larger and larger and more unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, we can't talk about that and blah, blah, blah. It's because you can't shame somebody. Well, there's no, what the shame is like, you're going to have to face this reality, and it's probably going to end up being at your home or at a hospital, and it's not going to be fun. Okay. You are not going to have a fun ride. The quality of your life is going to suck, and you're going to end up in crisis mode. There's not a lot of really old, overweight people. It just doesn't happen. Okay. The overweight stuff is, and most of it is not your fault, because you didn't know about the wheat. You didn't know about the dairy, so I didn't know about any of this stuff. I didn't know about the dirty dozen, those 12 vegetables that were the most sprayed crops everywhere. And like, this is a whole new world for me. But what I didn't like is like, I don't like being lied to. And when I found out that there was actually toxic stuff, and I could go into a grocery store and buy it and eat it, and it was slowly killing me and poisoning myself, I had a big problem with that. Okay. I had to let that kind of go a little bit just for my own health, because I was creating so much stress. But I was mad. I was upset. So, and I think you should maybe get upset too in the very beginning. But at the end of the day, it's really simple. Stop buying it. Stop. Stop giving them money. They will stop making it. It's supply and demand. If you just say, okay, well, if nobody buys yellow cars, then guess what? They will stop painting them yellow. Why? Because nobody's buying them. They don't want yellow for some reason. Well, we're going to double down. We're going to have twice as many yellow cars. That company's going to go out of business. They got it. We drive industry. Don't ever forget that. Whether you believe our voting systems are corrupt or not, it doesn't matter. The one thing that is clear is that when you vote with your dollars, you're sending a message to the world and corporations what you want. So pay attention to what you want. Get educated on this stuff. Make it simple. So, all right. So hopefully I made a big case on why you would want to avoid wheat that has been selected, that has been grown in nutrient deficient soils, that has been sprayed, why you should not drink from the breast of another species unless it's an emergency situation. And number 3, why to avoid seed oils, because here's the other part of the seed oils. Besides them, you got to make sure they're heirloom, grown in the soils and everything. But when you extract the oil, they go rancid very quickly. So seed oil, once it's extracted, should be refrigerated. And so should that product. If the product that you're eating is not refrigerated and has seed oil into it, unequivocally that company has no clue on nutrition. They have no clue, because the only good seed oils will be grown properly, heirloom seeds, nutrient-dense soils, harvested properly, cold pressed, and they will be in a refrigerator. That's where they will be. So seed oil's not good. India, that whole country of India is there's seed oil billboards all over the place, and all these other countries, as they adopt these things, their health goes down the toilet, just like the United States. And India's health is going down the toilet, and cardiovascular issues are on the rise.
Well, one thing that I opened my eyes up to years ago, I came from the banking industry, credit card processing. I was a pioneer in the early days of what they called electronic draft capture. And one of the things that Wall Street really liked about our business model, that is, it was reoccurring revenue. So it gave us a lot of power to leverage a company, whether you're selling, whether you're borrowing money or whatever. And one thing that I've looked at is in the last 15 years, maybe even 20, other businesses have been trying to get into that reoccurring revenue model. And I can tell you this, I had a huge discovery. It was around 2004 because I was listening to the radio and somebody said 73% of all people were on some sort of psychotropic drug. And we had about 700 employees in the company. I went to my head of my HR and asked her this question. I said, "Hey, I heard this. Is it true?" And she said, "Yeah, I see what we're spending on our medicine." And at that moment, I'm like, their business model is just like ours, reoccurring revenue.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me now. In the last 10 years, I've seen, the healthcare industry go like this. And if you look at the number of medicines that we're all now required to take, I mean, you can't find anybody hardly that isn't on some sort of medication. I mean, our kids, first thing they want to do is they want to put you on medication to control your behavior. They want to put you on medication to control your anxiety. Every solution in society today is medication. And so I'm now looking at that as a horrible thing. I've witnessed it in my own life and people around me. And so what really ultimately upsets me is this is the people that we elect in our government. They're supposed to be doing things good for us, but yet this is the opposite. Allowing everything that you're talking about in our food supply, our water supply, and our air supply is horrible.
So don't buy it. It's that simple. And something that you brought up for us is like, if you go look, you want to look what health is. What are the most vibrant creatures on the planet? Okay, you go out in nature, that's where it's at, right? Wild creatures. They're like, they move really quick and they can run, jump, do all this stuff. How many medications are they on? They are on 0. Okay, they're on 0 medications. Why? Because they are plugged into the plant medicine. There was that guy named Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. The animals and all the other creatures instinctively, they're already plugged into all the medicine they've ever needed. It was already placed there on the planet for them and for us. And this is why we are all 3 of us are here. We're here to wake people up that the medicine you want is out there. The medicine is inside of you. Your body's literally a chemical factory.
Absolutely.
Right? Your thoughts so create chemicals in your body. You know, if you think something bad happens, oh my God, and then you find out it was the wrong information and it didn't happen, and you feel relieved and you're happy. Like, what changed? How you responded to the information. That's all it was. So go ahead, Kim. I tell you when to talk about something.
Well, you're talking about how our body's chemistry and how our body not only creates chemicals, like we are chemical and electrical beings, right? So the goal is to get your body functioning optimally to make its own good chemicals. Meaning the solution is not necessarily synthetically to boost or reduce things that are imbalanced in our body. The goal is to get our body into balance so that it can naturally maintain that homeostasis or harmony, but also so that we can produce those things naturally. So, for example, the hormone melatonin, which is for our circadian rhythm of sleeping and wake cycles. Yes, we can take melatonin supplements to artificially boost that melatonin production, but the goal is also the holistic approach means to target it at the root of what the problem is, as well as addressing the symptoms. So there's lifestyle changes. There's things we can do to shut off the blue light and the electronics at night to help you get quality sleep, while we're also artificially boosting this hormone or chemical in your body to get your body to naturally produce that itself. So this approach that we're talking about with nutrition, with lifestyle habits, we're not just trying to prescribe a pill for every ill. And we're also not telling people that they can't enjoy life. We're saying that balance is the key. And in general, nature has created everything we need. Our body is designed to perform at its best, but we have to give our body what it requires for optimal function. And then something else you said about the way our thoughts affect us. So the calories in, calories out approach is very common, especially in the health and fitness world, where people who read labels are taught to look at the calorie intake. And I had this wake up call with my nephews who are 6 and 8 and who are getting into sports. So now they're trying to eat for muscles, right?
Yeah.
And we're eating something and they're telling me about the caloric content in their kid way. They're talking about the calories in their food. So obviously someone had taught them this. And I started picking their brain about what they're really going for, because obviously they're not trying to lose weight. They're trying to be healthy for sports, right? So we're keeping it simple because they're kids, but I'm also explaining it to them in a way that whatever you eat, each bite of that food sends your body chemical messages that tells your body what it wants it to do. So if you eat a spoonful of ice cream or some kind of sugar content, it's telling your brain, hey, we're
Uh-oh, Kim froze.
She looks good. She'll come back.
She'll come back.
She was talking about, okay, there she is.
Oh, you froze. You froze.
It was a pause for thought. So every bite of food tells our body, communicates some sort of message to our body, and our body's systems react accordingly. So can you talk more about that?
Sure. I think she's talking to you, Forrest.
Whoever wants to take that answer, because it's a
well, I mean, it's really simple. It's that your body is literally a chemical factory. Okay, now this is some of the most exciting stuff that I've looked at is the thoughts, like you can heal with a thought. And I remember in 2011 when I was at Hippocrates, they were talking about some experiment that was done. There were some people in the United States and some people in China. And there was a person in China that kind of had some health issues or whatever. And they had him hooked up to a machine that would display that person's immune system in real time, like on a readout deal. And then they took the people in the United States and they literally prayed for that person. And as they were praying, the person was just sitting there doing nothing. And the immune system started going up, 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 up. Now, you have to understand that when I first heard this, this was all new to me. And I'm like, I'm getting results and stuff like this that, eating the food, I can see it. It's different. I feel better. Okay, I get this. But I couldn't really see that. And that stuff sounded a little bit woo-woo to me. Okay. And so things continued. And I went back in 2013. And then I met a woman there and a bunch of guys and gals. And this one woman had some severe trauma with her relationships. And then finally she was like, I'm all effed up. And she just started crying. And I held, and she was like crying. So I was hugging her. And all of a sudden I had all this energy coming up out of my stomach. And I started crying uncontrollably for 45 minutes. And we held each other and we cried. And then afterwards she was like, we were like, what was all that about? And I'm like, I knew what it was about. It was releasing emotional trauma because he had talked about that 2 years before in a class. And so chemicals, not only are they manufactured, but they can be stored. Emotions are stored in the cells. And this isn't woo because this stuff over the years has slowly unpacked itself to me because somebody brings something up. I'm like, oh my God. And I would connect the dots. I'm really good at remembering and connecting dots so I can see patterns. And I don't know, it's just something that comes to me naturally. And so what happened is they would take somebody, like you slammed your hand with a hammer, you cry. They would actually take those tears and test them and see what they were made out of versus your mother passes away and you cry. Like what happened to me not too long ago. My mom passed away. Those tears came out. They measured and tested those tears, completely different chemicals. So what they found out is that when you have when you're crying, when it's not like getting, slapped or poked with, or hit with a hammer, that you're actually detoxifying toxic chemicals of emotion that you were carrying around for how many years. Like it's a lot of weight to pack. And they actually come out of the body and they come out through crying. So it's a very powerful form of detoxification. Now I can tell you that after I cried for 45 minutes, I felt like I was literally floating around on a magic carpet, just walking around. Like I felt 2 days ago, I was watching, I don't know if you guys seen that kid that's autistic, was on American's Got Talent. His name's Cody Lee. It's like unbelievable. Okay. The guy's autistic. He's kind of blind and he hears a song and he can play it like, he plays it like 2 or 3 times and he can do it perfect with his piano. Anyway, he dedicated a song to his mom. And he's, Mom, this song is for you. And then he plays it on the piano. And like, I've listened to it like 6 times since my mother passed. And yeah, I've cried. I've cried quite a bit since my mom passed. But not at the level I did 2 nights ago. And the reason why is because I was kind of like taking care of my dad. My aunt was in town. My cousin was in town. There was people here organizing the funeral, doing all this stuff. And finally it all settled down. I got my dad kind of in a groove after a week. Everybody's gone. And I got to bed early and I was laying there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch that. You know, I wanted to think about my mom again. And so I watched that video and I cried a little bit. And then I watched it again, that song. And then I started crying. And for about 20 minutes, uncontrollable. I mean, it was just like screaming and yeah, you know, it's like, what, you know, just like, it just stuff was, it took over. And I felt lighter, literally again, once again, lighter. So I had this, we have this emotional baggage, literally, that's stored as chemicals in our cells, right? And so what Kim was talking about is our body being like a chemical factory, right? When you eat certain foods, not only are you bringing in those chemical, whatever they, you know, beneficial or not, you're bringing those into your body, and basically based on what goes in, other chemicals are going to be produced in the body. That's just the way it is. It's a whole system. And we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of cells in the body. You know, you have like 360 trillion virus cells in the body. You've got 60 trillion bacterial cells and 6 trillion human cells. And all of those have many, 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 many interactions going on every second. Like I don't even know what it's quadrillions or whatever. You know, it's like the hormones and the communication. It's constantly moving. So this chemical factory is influenced by everything that comes into contact with it, whether it be a physical contact, whether it's air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat, the clothing you wear, the personal care products you use, the people that you hang around. You know, a lot of times sometimes you need to detox some people out of your life and then let them, they need to go learn. They need to go learn. Hey, if they're going to be around a good person like you, they're going to have to learn to behave differently. Right. But there's also the toxic thoughts. Forrest and I work on this with all of my clients. There hasn't been one person we haven't worked on this because we are our own worst enemies. We talk really negatively towards ourselves. We have negative thoughts towards ourselves. And most of us, if we talk to anybody else like we talk to ourselves, we'd probably get slapped. I mean, that's what would happen. We're really hard on ourselves, right? When are you going to be your own best friend? And start loving on yourself and lifting yourself up instead of degrading yourself and tearing yourself down. Why are we doing this? This was a realization I came to years and years ago, almost a decade ago. And I've been working on that and lifting myself up and not tearing myself down with those belief patterns that were instilled by society and parents and other people that threw their baggage onto me. And I decided to pick up this heavy baggage and carry it around for all these years. Instead, I just set it down. I walked away from it. The load's a lot lighter, I tell you.
Tim, and I'd like to point out in our conversations, you've helped me understand there are things that we say that seem pretty benign, but if you stop and you write them down, or if you listen to what comes out of your mouth, they're negative things. And so, you know, you're right. I basically am taking a different approach. And one of the things that you've encouraged me to do in the morning is to have, 20, 30 minutes of me time and just think about what to be grateful for, about my family, about my home, the career that I have, and for me, the career this is really a way of life for me. I have had a career, but what me and Kim and Craig do, and now we're kind of trying to roll you in. This is our way of life. And so one thing that I do know is I absorb a lot of stuff with this life. Okay. What you're talking about, I've been in the middle of the woods running, talking to God after we've ran some operations, and I've broke down which that's just not how I am. I've never been built that way. So I do agree at a cellular level, we're absorbing not only our own trauma.
Forrest, you were built exactly that way. You were built exactly that way. You were built to release that stuff.
Well,
what was holding on to it was the ego.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's easier, right? It's like, I don't even care now. I literally don't care what anybody says about me or think. I don't care. What the hell do they have to do with my life?
Yeah.
Nobody really does. The only person that has responsibility for our lives is ourselves.
Right.
Doesn't really matter what anybody else is doing or thinking or saying,
Yeah.
So
There's a fine
yeah,
line between maintaining empathy and compassion and awareness of other people, but also not caring at all what they experience when they're looking at you or not. So what I mean by that is I kind of tend to be on the spectrum of, I recognize this is not normal, but of just not caring at all what people think. Like if they're I don't care. I honestly am really good at blocking it all out. But at the same time, I'm very aware of people. I'm kind and considerate. I'm not just going to bust through people when I'm in public. I'm going to, say, excuse me, please, thank you. But I'm also spend zero energy or time at all worried about other people's concerns. Now I have to be conscious of that because I have to purposely try to, be more aware of certain things in public. But what I'm saying is that I think it's a more elevated state of consciousness to be so secure, knowing that you're doing the right thing, knowing that other people have their issues and that doesn't affect you at all, knowing that their opinion of you does not affect you at all. But then also maintaining that balance of, social skills and interactions while also not being bogged down by the opinions of others. It's very liberating.
absolutely. Yeah, that's good. I mean, and again, back to what you were saying, Kim, is that the body's being a chemical factory. It really is. So we have to be careful of, you know, where we're at now today. We live in a polluted world, so we want to obviously use detoxification systems. Like we said, drink some water to start. You could, drink some greens, take some gut detox, get that kind of stuff going. Do some, if you want to do enemas, colon hydrotherapy is a great thing to do because you can get that stuff out in a day or two. Cleaning that 6 to 12 pounds of stuff out. So stop putting the chemicals in. Start putting in good ones. Start feeding your body with good and your mind with really good thoughts, right? Hanging around people that lift you up and support you. It's all about the environment and all these environmental factors, whether they be a thought or it be a sandwich, they're all going to affect the chemicals that are going on inside of your body. And you want to be having awareness around that, because if you can get your body clean and then just flood it with all these naturally occurring types of chemicals that come from plants, phytochemicals and stuff like that, and you have really good thoughts, and you learn to drop the ego and let go of the baggage and cry from time to time whenever necessary and needed, you're going to feel a lot lighter and your body's going to heal a lot faster. You're going to lose weight faster. You're going to get your mental clarity back. All the things, it'll just start tumbling in the right direction for you. And it just kind of builds upon itself. And you can literally heal yourself in a thought. I've seen it happen. But in the meantime, you can do all these strategies that we're sharing.
Indeed.
One of the most impactful stories you shared one time when we did a live stream was about a doctor or colleague of yours who only accepts clients. He has a 100% success rate in helping people heal themselves. And he only accepts clients based on one very strong rule he has about other people in their life. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So this story was related to me from another doctor friend of mine about a doctor who treats cancer patients. And hopefully I'm getting the story correct. But the gist of the story was that the guy does have like a really high success rate. It's like 100% or very close to it. And which is pretty remarkable, right? It's like, sign me up. Like if I had cancer, that'd kind of be the guy I'd go with. It's like kind of makes sense rather than the other options. And but what he would do was that he would sit down. He had these very thorough intake forms, but he was very thorough about the people in that person's life. The person that had cancer, he wanted to know all about all the people that they were in contact with in detail. And then he would help them identify that one person that was causing the most stress in their life, basically. And so for him to accept them as a client, and obviously they're there with him, they've got cancer, they've probably got a little fear going on, they're looking for this guy for help. He said, I will help you, but you have to literally get this person out of your life forever. Like literally cut them out. They're gone. And never talk to them again. And those people would do that, and they would and then he would do other stuff. I don't know exactly what it was, but that was part of one of his recommendations that he said you have to get that person out of your life. Otherwise, you're not going to heal. And I've been saying this for a long time, is like, if you cannot reduce your stress, if you cannot get out of fight or flight mode, if you cannot put yourself in rest and digest mode and learn how to respond differently to the outside factors, you're never going to heal. It's not going to happen for you. You can try till you're blue in the face. If you live in a stressed out situation, if your environment is high stress and you're trying to heal of breast cancer or prostate cancer, or you've got fibromyalgia or whatever, Lou Gehrig's disease, whatever the catch basin term is of whatever your problem is, it's not going to happen for you unless you can learn your stress. And that's why, like, I try to make things as simple as I possibly can for people, because I don't like complicated. And I've looked at this over and over and over and over and over again. And now, like I said, I've had thousands of these people fill out health history forms, and it's like, I already know what's wrong with them before they even it's the same stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a few little tweaks, if you had like, Raynaud's syndrome, where your hands get really cold and your body's cold all the time, and it's probably an iron deficiency. But there's a couple little products that work really well for that very quickly, right? But the bottom line is, it's all back to the same stuff: stress, toxic buildup of stuff in the micro level in the body, and a deficiency in nutrients. It's those three things every single time. So if we can focus on those three areas, and what can we do to reduce our stress? Well, sometimes you got to detox some people out of your life, and then the stress just goes away. I had a kind of an emotional wrestling match recently with my mom passing, because I realized that after she was gone, like, I had a lot more time on my hands, because when you're a hospice or caregiver for somebody going through cancer and stuff like that, it does take a lot out of you. It does. That's why usually the spouse that's taking care of the other spouse that's sick dies before they do. It's a tremendous amount of effort. And I actually felt I had a sigh of relief. I had a huge sigh of relief that my mom was gone. And then what I wrestled with was, I felt guilt for feeling relieved. But then I gave myself some grace, and I was like, I'm a human being. Like, it's okay for me to feel relief. That was a lot of work. I did my part. When she needed me, I was there. She's gone now. And it's okay to feel okay about, like, not having to take care of her anymore because she's not here. And I kind of wrestled with that for a little bit, because I was starting to feel guilty that I felt good. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why would I feel guilty because I feel good? Like, I had a great relationship with my mom. She's not here now, and I shouldn't feel guilty about this. So, but I did for a short period of time, and then I worked my way through it, and I'm happy about it now. But so we have all these stories that we tell ourselves. We have all these things that crop up, and I think a lot of it's just the ego trying to survive. It's scraping as it's falling down the well, and it's scratching, trying to claw its way back up, as it's always going to be there. It's never going to go away. And I think the thing to do is to understand and give that ego some love, and say, look, I love you. I know you're there. I care about you. I know you're going to try to do your thing, and just give it permission to be. And then I think if you do that, it'll just kind of set there. But you have to understand that you're in the driver's seat of your life, not your ego, not societal conditioning or parental conditioning. It's you. So you can give love to everything, but then at the end of the day, it's just a choice. You can choose light or you can choose dark, and it's really, really up to you.
Oof, so true. I think there's so much to be said for the mental, you could say, detoxing, or the mental part of wellness. And like you said, stress. So even on a more physical, tangible level, have you heard of the thing called cortisol gut, where basically someone can be relatively healthy and not necessarily overweight, but the stress caused by our modern lifestyle causes an increase in cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which can present in a lot of different ways in our lifestyle, including sickness and other things, depleting our energy, brain fog, etc. But it can also help our body hang on to excess weight. And there's a physiological reason and presentation of that. And someone could be doing all the right things physically, meaning nutrition and sleeping well and exercise. But if they still have a stressful and or toxic relationship or thing that they have to deal with in their life, it will affect them, obviously mentally as well as physically.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is cortisol? It's your body making a chemical. That's what it is, right? And it's there for a reason. And this is really important to point out. I've talked about this before, I believe on, defending our children as well, and some lives that we've done, Kim, Instagram and TikTok or whatever it was. But you think about it, there's natural processes for everything, right? So if we're back in caveman days and the old adage, the saber-toothed tiger comes at you, what happens? You're going to spike your cortisol and you're going to spike adrenaline. Certain chemicals are going to be made in your body as a natural fight or flight response so that you can run or fight. And you become very strong and alert. So your body's not thinking about digestion at that point in time, right? So digesting your food is not going to be its main priority, because if you don't live through this saber-toothed tiger moment, there ain't going to be no digestion to have, right? You're done. You're going to be digested. That's what's going to happen, because you're going to get ate. So your body makes chemicals, and you guys have seen this where a car falls on a child and a woman picks the car up and pulls the kid out, like Superman strength. Where did all that come from? It came from chemicals. Like, this is the human potential. It's unbelievable what we can do. And we see it from time to time, and we see it in sports, and we see it in these moments of tragedy where people save people, like people amp up and they get stuff done. Well, a lot of these things are happening because these chemicals, our body is flooded with chemicals, right? And these chemicals are supposed to be what? Used for a purpose. They were given to you because of this circumstance, this fight or flight. Here's some chemicals. Go save yourself. And you do, and guess what? You save yourself, you run, and you fight, and you burn through those chemicals, and you use them up as they were supposed to be used. Let's say you lived, now you're back in the cave, and you're like, whew, I got away from that saber-toothed tiger. That was a close one. And you go back to your life, and you go back to picking berries and doing your thing, and you're calm, right? You're back in rest and digest mode. That's a natural way of doing it. Here's the modern life. The modern life is you wake up to an alarm. That is a saber-toothed tiger to your nervous system. It will not recognize the difference. Then your spouse says, you're fat, you're ugly, you're a loser, you need to make more money, blah, 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 blah. That's a saber-toothed tiger. You got to get the kids ready to school. They're not paying attention. You can't get the youngest one out of bed. Come on, let's go. We got to get you on the bus. What are you doing? These are all saber-toothed tigers. Then you get in your car, and then somebody cuts you off. A little bit of road rage, another saber-toothed tiger. And on they go. You go to your work. There's some douche at work that you can't stand. They're toxic. More fight or flight response. You don't get your Christmas bonus, and you've already bought the swimming pool, like Christmas vacation.
Clark Griswold.
there's some stress there. Okay. And you come home, and then your wife wants you to clean the garage, or your husband wants you to do, you're going to do it. You got to plan trips. You got to take care of elderly parents now, because our parents are getting sick, and then their dementia and the Alzheimer's and all this stuff. They're walking down the road and taking off. These are all saber-toothed tigers. Turning on the news, saber-toothed tiger, right? These are all of these things. And why did I go into all this detail? The reason why I went into all this detail is because most of you listening to this show are in a constant form of fight or flight. It's 24/7 almost, except when you're sleeping. Maybe you're in nightmares. So an almost constant state of fight or flight. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, those are all saber-toothed tigers, fight or flight. Your body's going to produce chemicals because it recognizes you're in fight or flight mode. You need to run or fight. And so cortisol and adrenaline is pumped out. But the difference is that you didn't run and you didn't fight. Those toxic chemicals were not used properly for their natural purpose to save you. And those chemicals that were there to save you now become a toxic soup, and they're killing you. This is why if you don't learn how to respond to your life and only find the benefit of it, no matter what happens around you, you're constantly going to be in a fight or flight mode. And this is why one of the reasons why that doctor says you got to cut that person out of your life completely. And this is why, Forrest, when I work with people, I make them watch their language to themselves adamantly, because those things, even your own voice to yourself in your head, can cause fight or flight, right? We have to pay attention to the nervous system. We have to pay attention to our nervous system. We have to stay in rest and digest mode. And this is why it's good to pray. This is why it's good to meditate. This is why it's good to have a grateful practice. When I teach my clients is that the first hour in the morning and the first hour before, and the hour before you go to bed, those are sacred times. That is your time. That is your time to get prepared for the day, to do what you need to do for your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, and the same thing in the evening before you go to bed, so that you can get into a good night's sleep, because your evening routine is going to dictate how your day is going to go the next day. Sacred time in the morning. And like Forrest said, he's only doing 20 or 30 minutes because he's a pretty busy guy, but he started somewhere. But the goal is to work up to an hour a day. And the more you do this, the more you're going to want to do more of it. You'll still get more done during the day. You're going to accomplish more. I guarantee you, all the stuff that you think you got to get done, it'll get done better, more efficiently. You'll make more money. You'll have better relationships. You'll have better health. You'll have a better spiritual path. All this stuff, if you can really focus on these sacred times early in the morning and in the evening at night. So this is why the stress component, and why I say, if you don't learn how to deal with stress, fight or flight, these chemicals that they're becoming toxic. This is why sports bars is like an oxymoron. People go there, they're throwing all this booze down their throat, right? And then when a sports team that they like scores, like they go crazy for a second. But most of them, they're just sitting there and they're getting all the stress, but they're not out on the field with the players running it off. They're not burning through the cortisol and the adrenaline. So you're literally poisoning themselves double, because they're not moving their bodies and they're putting toxic chemicals in the form of alcohol and sugars into their body. So it's like a double kill zone.
And gluten-free pretzels.
Yeah.
That will totally negate all that. You can do tequila and beer, and as long as you're doing gluten-free pretzels, you'll be healthy.
Right. So I like to give people action steps, since it's so important for people to take this information and do something with it. So do you have a very simple, like, breathing exercise or some sort of stress reduction practice that you can recommend for people? This isn't an all-inclusive full protocol. This is more like, what's a small tip that people could implement today and tomorrow to help lower their stress and manage their emotions?
Okay. Well, I alluded to that sacred time. I think it's good to carve out at least 5 minutes, probably 15. Let's carve out 15 as a minimum. And let's just do that. So if you can take 15 minutes in the morning and at night, and again, it's like, just when I'm saying this, I can already hear the voices in people's heads going, I don't have time. Well, the question is, you got to go look in your mirror, and are you fully fulfilled in your life? If the answer is no, then you might want to not listen to your ego and your brain and start listening to your heart and start loving yourself enough to make an investment in you. I mean, my goodness, like, if you're not going to do it, how can you expect anybody else to love you? So 15 minutes, and you can do some breath exercise. So you can simply just breathe in deeply through the nose like this, pause at the top, and then release out through the mouth. Nice, long, slow flow. Just let it all go. Pause at the bottom with your lungs completely empty, and then back in through the nose. Nice deep breath. Fill up the lungs. Pause at the top, and release out through the mouth. Okay, now while you're doing some breath work, and if you have a different breath work, I don't care. Do it. Just breathe. Do some deep breaths in and out. It doesn't really matter. Just do something, okay? Don't get hung up on, am I doing the breath work right? And this guru over here said to breathe like this, and this one said to push the nose closed, and there's all a bunch of different stuff. The habit is more important than the technique. If you want to experiment with different types of breathing techniques from time to time, go ahead. Find what works for you. But the most important thing is setting your butt down and saying, I love me, and I am who I am, and that is enough. And that might be a good little mantra to wrap up your day with and start your day. I am what I am, and that is enough. I am what I am, and that is enough. I am what I am, and that is enough. You could say that 3 times when you wake up and 3 times before you go to bed. Do some breath work. And while you're doing that breath work, you can feel grateful for the people in your life and get excited about the people that you're going to boot out of your life and get the toxins out and get excited for this information. It's like, wow, maybe I listened to this show and it's like, these people really resonated with me and there was a lot of stuff here and I'm going to take that one thing and I'm going to go do it. And I got benefit from it and come back and you can come listen to this show again, share it with other people. But that's something you could do, Kim, is have that sacred time in the morning, get a little, at least 15 minutes, do some breathing exercises during that time. And then while you're doing the 15 minutes, do your little thing. I am who I am, and that is enough. And then be grateful for the people in your life and see yourself having a great day and just taking 15 minutes and then forget about it. And then you can move on with your day. If you want to extend that to an hour and you have the time to do it and the wherewithal, make that sacred hour from the beginning, go for a walk, take your supplements, drink lots of water, move your body, do some yoga, do some stretching. And then in the nighttime, you can do the same thing. Maybe you take it in far infrared sauna. There's just a bunch of things you can do. Get your little routines going and then have that sacred time.
I love it. Thank you. We've covered so much great information today, and I want to end with a little bit of a summary, but also give people the hopefully motivation that no matter where they are in their journey, this matters too much to ignore. So don't be embarrassed. Don't feel overwhelmed if you haven't really begun or if you don't know where to begin. I want to encourage people to take whatever that first step is for you. So today we talked about practical things like adding more water to your daily routine, drinking more water and making sure it's quality water. We talked about not inundating your body with gluten and dairy and sugars and seed oils and things that are pure toxins and that overload your body's toxic load and make it harder for you to perform at your best. We've also talked about lifestyle changes, and maintaining healthy minds and bodies starts with our mindset and our thoughts, as well as what we put into our body, as well as what we decide not to put into our body. So I hope that this information was helpful for people, and I definitely want people to stay tuned because we're going to be unpacking a lot more of these topics with Tim James and other guests on defending our health. And Tim, I want to really thank you for joining us today. This was really insightful, and I appreciate this information being shared. Do you have any final words to end us with here?
Well, thanks, Kim and Forrest, for having me on. And, I would say just put yourself first. Like, start loving yourself. That's very important. If you're not going to do it, I mean, how can you expect somebody else to? And as if you're a parent or grandparent, you want your kids to love themselves, set the example.
I love it. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. This is our new show, Defending Our Health, Mind, Body, Mastery. So we will see you all again with another special guest and more to discuss. Thank you again, Forrest and Tim James.
Thank you.